Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Postnatal Minds podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very old friend, Alice, who will introduce herself shortly. And this is episode 7 on single parenting. I hope you all managed to catch up with the last episode on pelvic health and physio. The Mummy Physio have had some great feedback. So, Alice, without any further ado, could you just introduce yourself and a little bit about you?
So my name's Alice. I'm from Brighton. I spent a lot of time in London. I previously worked as a professional dancer, and then I moved back to Brighton when I had my first child. And I'm now a single parent of 3, and I'm also a dance teacher and someone who's really interested in wellness. And I have some wellness retreats that I put on for women in particular. And that's about it, really.
Yeah, so a very small summary of a huge career there. But tell me about your 3, so ages and names, so people can get a picture of you and your family.
Sure. So I've got 2 girls. My eldest is called Angel and she's 9. I then have Star, who's 6, and then I have a son who's 3, and his name's Shira. Very cheeky.
Busy mama. Where did the name ideas come from? Because they're quite unique, aren't they?
Yeah, so Angel's actually named after her dad. Star has an interesting, it's probably a bit woo-woo for some people, but her name, basically I had a really tricky pregnancy with Star, where she, in very short, was born without a corpus callosum, which is like the fibre that joins both sides of your brain together. And I found out it was my 20-week scan that I found out that there was an issue with her brain. And it was probably about 25 weeks when I found out a little bit more about what it was. But it wasn't until about 30 weeks when I had like a full understanding of what we were dealing with. And during that time, it was very uncertain if I was going to be able to continue my pregnancy, and if I did, what her life would look like. And it was a lot. So during that period of time, both myself, my sister, and my best friend all had the same dream that her name was Star. So
Really?
I don't think it was a name that I would have necessarily pulled out, but I felt like that was her name, and I just
It's meant
had
to
to go
be.
with that. And then Shira, I don't really know where his name came from, I'm not going to lie. I was like, had no names for boys, and then I think at one point I was thinking about calling him Shadow, and I was like, that's a bit much. And then I think it rolled on from there. I don't know, I was having a moment, I think.
And did you find out with each pregnancy what you were having?
Yeah, I've got no chill, I
Did
have
you?
to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like there's a little bit less pressure when you don't know, because you can be a bit more chill about, like, oh,
Yeah,
we'll have to
yeah.
wait and see what comes. But yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like
that's
if you
not
know, then
it's not me. I'm like, I need to know
yeah,
immediately.
yeah. No, I see both sides. I did, well, we found out of Arlo, but Alba, I didn't. I loved not knowing.
It's crazy to me. Like, I respect it. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
just,
I don't know, because I'm a bit like a perfectionist and like to plan and like a bit of a control freak. But yeah, I think it's been ingrained in me by my family. My grandma was always said it's the biggest surprise you can ever have, and
oh,
it's
that's
one that
cute.
no one can ruin it.
Oh, that's really
Um,
sweet. That's
I
nice.
think, yeah. So I think it's just, yeah, what you're used to, isn't it? But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, 9, 6, and 3.
Yeah.
Wowza. So tell me a little bit how and when you ended up as a single parent.
Well, I think the best way to describe it was like being really young and in love. And I don't know, maybe not anymore, but for me, anyway, I just wanted the family. I wanted the fairy tale. I wanted the relationship with the kids, and it to just to be this like beautiful thing that you go through. But ultimately, I think both me and my ex-partner, we were in very 2 different spaces. And I think as a
Yeah,
result of that, over the years, as much as you try, the relationship breaks down, it no longer works. And for whatever reason, you have to take a step away from something that's just no longer healthy for anyone involved, especially the
yeah.
children. We actually separated prior to me having my son. that pregnancy was discovered after we separated, which actually I think was a really positive thing, even though it sounds crazy. It
Yeah.
just allowed me to have a slightly different experience, like with having a newborn with my son, and just feeling a bit more like secure where I was. So
Yeah,
it
I
was a
get that.
positive. It was definitely a positive thing, but ultimately, you don't sign up to life and go, I know what's a great idea. I'll have 3 kids and just do it all by myself. But life is life, and here we are. And
Yeah.
now I've got my 3 babies, and I look after them by myself, pretty much. Obviously, I've got great friends and family who help when needed. Like, that's super important. But ultimately, it's me and my little cubs, which is
Yeah.
hard, but it's also magical.
There are so many questions whirring through my brain. I think the first one, I feel like even with Lloyd around having 2 children, the exhaustion that I feel, the mundane, like picking up toys, doing the
Yeah.
washing, doing the dishwasher, like just that break, and how like you must have even less breaks than we even do sharing. And I just can't imagine the sheer mental load and exhaustion, right? Like that must be a huge
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
for you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when it's your life, you kind of know no different. So you don't really, I guess, a luxury for me is that I can't miss something I've never had, because I'd never really had a present co-parent. So I was doing it all
Yeah,
by
okay.
myself anyway. So I think you get into your routines, don't you? Like, I'm sure you have your routines. I have mine, and I know that I just have to get it done. Like, it is really overwhelming sometimes. The ages and stages they all are at the moment, it's very vocal and it's very
Yeah,
noisy. And sometimes I'm
yeah.
literally like
I know,
it's
just the
really
noise.
overstimulating, really overwhelming.
Yeah,
That for me is the hardest thing. Like, if the girls are fighting or bickering over nonsense, but to
just the
them it's not.
added.
It's huge for them, but for me, I'm like, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you just do it. Like, I think that's the narrative with single parents, is like, when you communicate with your friends or other people that aren't a single parent, especially when you've got 3, because 3 sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but that's the constant narrative of like, God, how'd you do it? And you're like,
Yeah,
give me a day where I have the option where I can't. So
yeah,
you just do it, like,
yeah,
and I think going through certain things, you realize actually it's a luxury to be able to parent your children. It's a luxury to provide for them. It's a luxury to be present. And I think I'm guilty of it. Like, some days I'm like, oh my God, just have a day off. But
yeah.
actually, I constantly remind myself, like, my kids are healthy. We're doing all right. Like,
You
it's
would
just a
miss it if it
mindset thing.
wasn't there.
Yeah, like, oh my God. There was one evening where I think I was meant to work or something, and my mum had offered to have all the kids overnight for me, and then whatever happened, I didn't end up doing it, and then I was alone in my house, and I nearly got a bus to my mum's house, because I was like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Like, being apart from them, I find really difficult.
Yeah, there's that probably codependent factor as well, isn't it? About
Yeah,
how it, like the natural thing of it is strange when you're away from your children when they're young, because you're used to them being kind of koalaed onto you and the mummy, mummy, mummy. It's a bit like when they're babies and you have a shower and you hear the crying in the shower, but they're not crying. Like, it's that association, isn't it? I totally
yeah,
get that. You feel like a little part's missing. And I always find, like, if when you do have time away, like you go away for a night or whatever, I never sleep that well. Like, I don't
no.
know if you, I think it, like you said, it's what you're used to. I don't know if you ever would do it any other way. I don't know. Like, I totally hear what you're saying about, like, you just have to, like, just do it. You have to
Do you
just
know
do it.
what? I think it's like anything. We have You have your life, I have my life. Everyone's got their own lives, and it's how you embrace it.
Yeah.
Like, life is always going to life. There's always going to be like a challenge, and it's that whole, like, I refer to it as like the flat tire days. Something's always going to go wrong. Something's always going to go, and it's
Yeah.
it's how you allow it to affect your
Yeah.
life. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I really struggle sometimes, and there was a period of time last year where I felt really overwhelmed, because as a single parent, it's not just feeding them, getting their shoes on, bathing them. It's not the mundane, it's the big choices. Like,
Yeah.
like, one of them wants to do this, or there's an opportunity for that, and it's like, what school that, like, these decisions that feel quite big and you're
Yeah.
responsible for them, that is when I start to be like,
Overwhelmed.
I'm just a baby. Like, someone like
Yeah.
decide for me. I can't keep making all these big choices, like where we're going to live, what school they're going to go. You know, like
Yeah.
sometimes that's when I get overwhelmed, when it feels like some of the choices that I make or a parenting approach to a situation that arises, if I get it wrong,
Mm.
it feels really big. And I haven't got someone to be like, do you think we're doing this the right way? Like, because I don't have that. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
like tick, tick, tick in my own brain, and I'm like,
Do you think you can get things wrong though? Because I've really thought about parenting recently, and like you, like the responsibilities and the like we've just had to choose Alba's school, for example, and of course, like when I'm looking around, I'm looking for Arlo too. So it felt
yeah,
even bigger for me because I've got to
yeah,
find somewhere that's going to be good for him as well. But like and I've started thinking about this and talking to Alba about mistakes recently as well, because I think sometimes we're so focused on getting things right and making the right decision and it being good or bad and like these black and white perspectives on life, when actually I read something that said mistakes help all of us learn as
yeah,
adults, as children, and as long as you hold on to that, like you can't get parenting wrong. You can do something and think, maybe would have done it like that, but ultimately you'll never know if that would have like a different outcome. So I think it's what I'm kind of hearing from you is that openness to like, yes, you're going to have the tired days and you're going to have days, where you wake up and you just know you're going to cope a bit less or you're going to be a bit more emotional that day. But like, if you're open to it just being that day and that things will get better,
yeah,
that when
100%.
the overwhelm doesn't kind of take over. But
Yeah, I think you just have to roll with it sometimes. You're like, you know, trying to get 3 kids out the door sometimes to go to school. I'm like, we're late again.
yeah,
Like, the grand scheme of
take a deep
life,
breath.
I'm not a perfect person, and I am really transparent with my kids that I'm not a perfect person. And I think
Yeah,
it's okay to just be like, should we try and do this better tomorrow because it's gone a little bit
yeah. Get
today?
them on
And
your
just,
team.
yeah, literally, or like, and just be a human being. Like,
Yeah, sometimes I literally say to Alba, I'm feeling a bit stressed and I feel a bit worried, and I wonder if we can try and get there on time, or I'm worried you might be a bit cold. What do you think? And she said something to me yesterday. I said to her, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, darling, do you want to put your wellies on because it's raining outside? And she's like, no, I want to wear these like frozen slippers. And I'm like, I think you might be a bit cold in those. And then she said to me yesterday, Mummy, it's my choice. And I thought, yeah, it is your choice. So like, let's do it. You leave. I'll bring her wellies and some socks in my bag, but I'm not going to force her to do something she wants to do. And of course, within a few steps of being outside, she said, "Mummy, my feet are cold," and we got changed into her wellies. But you've got to stop sometimes, haven't you, and choose your
yeah,
battles and be like, what can I let them learn naturally
yeah.
from, and what do I need to like, enforce? But that is thinking about different ways of doing that is tiring in itself.
When my brain doesn't stop, I don't know about you, I'm tick, 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 tick all the time. And
Yeah,
I'll say something and I'll backtrack. And like you said, how could I have done that better? Or just constantly trying to be like the best version of myself so I can show up in the best way. But I'll be lying if sometimes I just lose it and I'm like, get your shoes on. But
yeah,
ultimately, like you said, you probably, other than the extremes of right and wrong, like as long as you're doing your best with what you have in the moment, like
100%.
I think life is the biggest lesson, right? And sometimes you've got to, my little starry, she's got this habit of like skidding when she walks on her feet. And like every other parent, babes, you're going to fall over in a minute. Stop it. It's icy outside. Stop. And then straight over. And then she just gives you the look. And then all she wants in that moment is a hug.
Yeah. So going back to Star and
Yeah.
your pregnancy with her, and I know you mentioned something with her skull. Where are you at now with that? Like, does that have an impact on her day to day, like prognosis for the future? Like, 'cause I don't
So,
know, I haven't heard about that before.
yeah. So it's not a bone structure, it's a fibre. So
Okay.
imagine you've got both sides of your brain that work and function, and then they kind of rely on this fibre that goes straight through. And that the way the doctors explained it to me was, imagine what this is Brighton, this is London, and this is the motorway. And it's the
Yeah.
direct route that the brain gets to communicate with either side.
Okay.
She doesn't have it. So when I was pregnant, they were like, she could be anything from normal, whatever you deem, it's a bit funny
Yeah.
word, but normal, to as far as you can imagine the other end, where she could be non-verbal, non-functioning, have a feeding
God,
tube.
what a piece of news to receive in the pregnancy.
Well, I was 30 weeks pregnant. I had a note attached to my pregnancy notes to say that I could terminate my pregnancy at any point. It wasn't it wasn't a choice for me. I was like, she's my baby.
The pain, the pain of going through that would be much harder for life.
I remember calling like a helpline, which seems really silly, but I just couldn't talk out freely to like anyone else because I just wanted to be a baby, and and I was like, I need someone to explain to me what the process of terminating this baby will look like. And this lovely lady on the phone spoke me through like every single stage of what it would look like should I terminate my pregnancy. And I was like, yeah, it's a no from me. Like, there's no way I could have done that.
You've just reminded me, actually, 'cause the day we found out about Arlo's condition, so I was 28 weeks pregnant, and we just got told the long word, like we didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
They just gave us time. They were like, we'll come back in half an hour. I remember us talking about it, and me, little did we know that it wouldn't be an option. Like, they don't terminate for achondroplasia, and I absolutely see that now. I just had no clue about it. I didn't know what it was at that point, but I remember, like you, thinking, oh my God,
yeah,
how would what would it look like? Would I need to do the labour? Would it just be a C-section? Would I be put to sleep? Would I see him or her? Would I? And like the fear that I experienced in that moment was like nothing I've ever felt in my life.
You wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
No.
And the fact that there are women who have had to experience that, like whether it be like
known about or not,
or just, do you know what I mean, where you have to have this process and you have to deliver a baby that's not alive. It's horrendous.
And it's such a different decision too. Not that it would necessarily feel any different. It's different, but like doing a termination around like late 20s, early 30s, compared to like finding out that news when you maybe have tests at like 12, 13 weeks, like obviously both extremely difficult situations, but very different. Because you've got this baby moving, you can feel it. You're thinking, sorry, what do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm nearly there now. What do you mean? I'm 3.
Yeah.
This baby's huge. My stomach's huge.
As far as you're concerned, you have your baby, especially when you've had a baby previous.
Yeah.
And you know that experience, and then
it's true.
The other side of it is I already have a child who needs me and is so young and vulnerable and needs so much of me, and then I also have to know that I'm making a choice that could completely implement their life. Because if Sari had been as poorly as she could have been, how that would have, affected her life as well as mine and as well as everyone around her.
I mean, again, like I didn't know at that point that achondroplasia didn't have an impact on the neurological side for Arlo, but Lloyd and I had exactly the same thing. Alba came straight into our mind. Like, this is not just a decision for us. This is a decision that impacts our whole family. Like the ripples, extremely scary.
Yeah. But going back to luckily for Star, her life hasn't been hugely impacted by her condition, and I just feel so grateful for her. I definitely feel like she has some like quirks, I like to call them. Like, she's got some little things, and whether or not that is just who she is or as a result of this, because you don't know. But
No, it's true.
she's a wonderful girl. She's so smart. And she's the only thing, like one of the side effects of having this is that you have a slightly larger head. Like that's one of the physical side effects. But even that, like you worry, don't you, in this day and age of like the physical attributes of like how cruel the world can be and treat you differently. And she'll even come home sometimes and be like, I've got a really big head, haven't I? Because someone at school would have said it to her. And I'm like, yeah, but you've got big hair, girl. Like she's got like a little fro.
But
She's
isn't that
just
about us reframing the conversation about difference?
100%.
So, like,
Yeah.
I've had to go through this tenfold with Arlo because his head
Yeah.
is really big. And, like,
Yeah.
we're getting to the point now where Alba's friends, age 4-ish, are saying, you know, in the nursery reception, why has he got such a big head? And, like,
Yeah.
asking those really upfront questions.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've really had to learn how to be like, oh, but it'd be really boring if everyone looked the same. And like some people are really tall, some people have long legs. And I don't know if it's because it's where like our eyes and mouth, it's like the first thing we look at. But we're so tuned in with him now, as I'm sure you are her. But like,
Yeah.
and to be honest with you, kids will take the mick out of anything, like hair colour. Like I used to get called big forehead at school.
My eldest is going through it at school right now, where she came home the other day, and because she's petite, so she's particularly short. She's the youngest in her year. She's also petite, teeny tiny little thing, and she gets called names referring to her size. And she's a sensitive one. She really just takes it on, and she's like, I just think they're being unkind to me. I'm like, but you are Diddy. Like,
yeah, and how cool is that?
Yeah, like you're like mummy. Like I'm short, I'm 5'2", and I'm a 36-year-old almost. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you'll get cheaper
like said,
trainers.
how boring is it? Yeah, cheaper trainers, girl. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I know, it's just about reframing, and that comes back to like, as long as you can raise them in a secure environment where they know they're loved and accepted, and we teach them to have that confidence to not to necessarily challenge, but just to be like, okay, if you want to comment on someone's appearance, that's up to you, but I'm great, I'm good.
And also, I always say to mine, like, because I've got good-looking kids. There's some cute kids.
You
But I
do.
also say to them, like, it's great that you're beautiful, and it's great that you, like, you know, feel good about yourself and whatever. But also, it's probably the least interesting thing about you. Like, what is
Yeah.
so cool about you is that you're really brave, or you're really funny, or
Yeah, I do that.
because no one kind of gets out of it unscathed. Like, we all have insecurities. We all have, like, there's always going to be someone at school that says something that penetrates, and it doesn't matter what you say as a parent, but you're my mum. Of course you're going to say that, you're my mum. It's like your word isn't as empowering as it once was once they hit a certain age, which I never knew would happen.
Yeah, it's so true.
Like having a 9-year-old who've got people at school saying little things, and she's really sensitive, and she's like, oh, well, you would say that. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean it, and it's true.
How do we get them to not learn to seek acceptance from people they don't know?
I don't think you can. I think it's just something that everyone has to go through. I think we all have to fall on that sword, and then we have to like rebuild. Like the mama bear in me is so like, I need to speak to someone's parents or whatever.
Yeah,
and sometimes
solve it.
fix it. But actually, all you're doing then is taking away the lesson that they need to learn.
And making
It's like
it a
tying
big
their
thing.
shoes forever. Like they'll never learn to tie them. It's that same thing. Like you have to go through adversity. You have to have, whether that's standing up for yourself
Pain.
at school, or learning that actually what they say about you is probably because they're jealous, or whatever it is. Like we have to let them, otherwise they'll lack that resilience and that ability to build themselves, is what I think anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm like totally putting off the school stuff in my head until 6 months' time when I need to actually think about it. But,
Yeah, don't think about it. Yeah.
oh, I'm so scared. But
Yeah.
so going back to the single parenting,
Yes.
what are your biggest challenges? And we'll talk about the positives as well, because there will be positives. But what do you find most challenging about being a single mum?
So for me, I would say my personal biggest challenge being a single parent is how lonely it can be. When you're go, 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 spin, 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 just wanting a moment for yourself, and then you get one and you don't know what to do with it, and the responsibility, that sole responsibility to parent your children is number one, and it goes before everything, for me at least anyway. Like last year I had to pull back on work because I knew my kids needed more of me. There's a cost there, a financial cost, dating and things like that. I haven't been able to do it because my kids have to come first, and I'm not prepared to do that if it's not ready, like the right time, and the cost is too big for them, or because right now my focus has to be my children and my career, or and it can get just a little bit lonely, because being single, for one, you're often like not as invited to many things, because most people are at our age are kind of like in little groups where they've got families and they kind of link up with other little families, so you don't
Oh,
always
I'd
get
never really
invited to
thought about
everything.
that.
And like, there's just like little things that you wouldn't see unless you're a single parent. For
Yeah.
example, me being invited anywhere with 3 children on my own. Do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes you just, or I'm probably guilty of avoiding going places because I'm like, we're going to be too much in that space.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Do you ever get an invite, but absolutely cannot be bothered because you know it's just going to be like carnage?
Yeah, we got invited to go ice skating with my whole family, and I was like, no, it's not going to be fun for anyone because all of them will need help. I'm I'm not an octopus. There's one of me. There's 3 of them. The financial cost that it will cost me solo. It's like anything you think of, like even going on holiday or going swimming or anything. You're like, oh, I just can't do it on my own.
Yeah, weighing it up all the time. But then I find sometimes then staying in can be really stressful too, because then you create more mess in the house and you
Yeah.
feel cooped up. How do you get that balance? You're still working on it.
I'm just, yeah, I promise you, I'm winging it to the day I die. Some days we'll go out and that'll be really successful days where we've just been down the beach and we've had this like really lovely time. And there are other days that we've stayed in all day and we've had such a lovely time.
Yeah.
And then put all of that, flip it straight on its head. Like, I've gone out and I'm like, why am I here? This is hell. Like,
Yeah. I think that's parenting as well. Like
yeah.
feeling it harder because you're a single parent, but 100% I've had those days too where I'm like the same day, completely different
Yeah. And you
feel.
want to care less. I want to be one of them people that cares less about others,
Yeah.
but I'm still working on it.
The other night, where was it? The kitchen was a bomb site. Alba was watching telly. I think Lloyd was bathing Arlo or something. But I was like, I could spend this half an hour and get a head start and clear up, or I could just go and sit on the sofa
Just sit
and
there, yeah.
say, I just said, can I watch this with you? And she was like, yeah, of course, mummy. Would you like to sit
That's
here?
really good.
And I hugged her and I just thought, I need to do this more. I need
Yeah.
to just like close the door and leave things till later and really focus on being present. And Alba's quite good now. She's at the age where she'll say, mummy, put your phone down. Like, and Lloyd and I are trying to be a bit more boundary to our phones because we're obviously both self-employed. It's quite easy to access like your work at home. But yeah, getting that balance of presence as well is challenging.
That's one of my biggest challenges, is that I've always got to be on. And then them all wanting me, and they all want solo time. It's so hard, like especially like my eldest at the moment. She's at that age where she's really craving some like one-on-one mummy time. Like,
yeah, I mean, and then if you sorted that out, you'd have the guilt of the other of
and
having.
then don't get me wrong, we do it, and what I've started doing. So on a Sunday is like a day that we'll wash all the uniforms. Kids will help me with laundry. We'll have a nice dinner together. And I try not to leave the house other than maybe like take them to the park or walk the dog, and, like just to keep it quiet. What I have found being a single parent is the best thing is simplify. So this time last year and probably the year before, I was like a sociopath. I was here, there and everywhere. I was burning myself into the ground. I was running the kids here, there and everywhere. And I was trying to overcompensate and distract from some of the things that we were going through when we were like moving home, and there was so much shift and change, and I was just like, everything's fine, like let's do, like it was too much. And actually simplifying, and like you said, letting them make a big mess, letting them do things at home, and just being like, we're going to go out today, we're all going to look cute, everyone's going to bark, and the house can just be a mess today, or vice versa. Like, we'll all stay in pyjamas and tidy.
Yeah, like, can we normalise saying no to kids' parties? Or, like, if you get 3 or 4 or 2 invites, like, maybe only doing 1. Or, like, if you're looking at your child and they're exhausted, they're not going to know at this age if they miss a party, like the younger ones. I so hear what you're saying. We had a day yesterday where we had nothing. We just woke up and Lloyd and I were like, what should we do today? And I was like, I genuinely can't remember the last time that we were able to say that, because there's been
Yeah.
something in the diary, and it
Yeah.
can make life feel like you're just galloping through the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. And sometimes it's really powerful to stop and be like, right, where are we
And
at?
say no.
Like,
Say no.
yeah,
Like I said about everyone needs to just give everyone else a little bit of grace, because whether you're a single parent, a parent, a non-parent who's got like a really big career, like, as you get older, everyone kind of disperses, everyone has their own little lives, and everyone, wants you to be a part of it, and that's great. Imagine the opposite, where no one wants to see you, or no, you never get invited. So to
yeah,
be wanted to be a part of stuff is great, but turning around and go, I actually can't afford that this month, or we've been really, really busy, so we're just gonna have a family weekend, like a quiet one, like, thanks, but no.
that's okay. Yeah,
That's fine. And if people don't get it or get the hump, like, that's also fine. Like, that they're disappointed that you can't, that's fine. That's really sweet that you're upset that I can't
do
come.
you love us? Yeah,
Yeah, but you just have to choose your unit sometimes, like, whatever your unit looks like, whether that's between you and your partner, or like me and my kids. Like, sometimes it's just easier for me to be like, no.
yeah. And I think at this time in your life where you have so much to think about and you've been through so much, you only want a crew around you that would never judge or make you feel guilty for making those right decisions for you and your family.
Yeah.
Like, I think perspective, and I've shared a post last night actually, and I really liked it, and it was about um, only be around people that allow your nervous system to feel calm.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
was like, I
promise
love
you,
that.
it's so important. If you don't look after you, no one else is going to do it for you. So if you, unfortunately, as a byproduct of looking after yourself, upset someone else, it's not intentional. And I'm really sorry that that is the
Yeah,
byproduct. And obviously, you can handle things and communicate things. But ultimately, like, whether you've got a newborn baby, or you're going through a separation, or you're a single parent and you're just not, you have to pick you every time. Because if
yeah.
you're not cool, how can these kids be cool?
Yeah, know me well enough to know that it's not meant in that way, and
Yeah. And
that's
hear
it.
me
I
when I
think that's,
communicate as well, because
yeah,
communication is really important. And if I turn around and go, thank you, I would love that. However, and a brief explanation, because again, we shouldn't need to explain ourselves like to the end of the earth. If that communication that is filled with love and respect isn't good enough for you, maybe we're in different places, because your expectation of me is currently too high and I can't meet your needs. And I'm sorry,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I have to meet mine.
yeah. That's a really good piece of advice. So you talked about the main challenges. What do you find is the most positive thing about being a single parent?
Probably not having like a partner to have to consider, maybe, like, sometimes getting up and getting on with it can be overwhelming, being that decision maker all the time. I also can just get on with it. And let's be honest, like, I've got 3 beautiful children that I get to spend all day every day with, and if I didn't have those kids, like, obviously you can't miss what you didn't have, but like, they bring so much to my life that I just see the beauty in them and the grace in them, and watching these little people that you made with love just turn into these funny little people that bring you so much. And then they're just, I think, especially because I've got more than one, because I've got 3, and seeing how, even when they're fighting and they're being annoying and they're driving me crazy, how they come together and like support each other. I love being a mum. I always said that I wouldn't have children, and somehow I've ended up with 3. And honestly, I think it's the thing I'm best at. Like, I love it so much. Like, and I think, a bit morbid, but we actually had a car accident last April, and it was me and all of the kids in the car, and it was bad, but we were all fine. So it's fine. But that little kind of brush of reality and how quickly things can change, I just don't use being a single parent as an excuse. Like, I have chosen to be single and I have children. They didn't choose it. So again,
Yeah.
one of the harder things is how unfair it feels for them to go without that co-parent as well, because they don't deserve that. But
Yeah.
ultimately it is what it is and you have to make the best of it. I just don't take it for granted, and I'm so grateful that I've got like 3 happy, healthy children that have got, the whole world to explore and their life to live, and it's not their fault that they have a solo parent, so they shouldn't feel any different. They shouldn't feel,
Do they talk about it? Do they ask questions, or how much do you have to talk about it?
yeah, I'm as transparent as I can be without making it unchild
Detrimental.
friendly. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't communicate about my ex-partner in a way that could ever implement their thoughts and feelings towards someone that ultimately loves them
Yeah.
dearly and they love as well. And I would never be someone that will get in the middle of that. However, obviously he currently isn't present in their life, and until it's appropriate for him to be, they are aware of the reasons why he isn't in the most child friendly way. And they know that the door is always open, whether that's a decision that mummy can make at some point for them, or if they're old enough to make that choice for themselves. And I just lead with love always, and explain to them that like 2 feelings can be the same. Like, you can feel unjustified, you can feel cross, you can feel angry. You can also still love
Yeah.
and still care and still,
Yeah.
have empathy and faith and hope, but also, you know what I mean? You have to have both sides. And I try and just share that with them.
And how do you do that, and how do you not let the resentment and the sadness overwhelm you?
Rightly or wrongly, I think about prior to when things go bad or left or, fall apart, that foundation that you started a family with, that love that you had for a person, you created your children with, ultimately from love, right? So you can't now decide that that love is invalid just because, someone's hurt you, or a relationship has broken down, or someone's not behaving in a way that's acceptable. You have to, I just park it and go, I don't know which version of you still exists, because I've created distance for myself and I know the relationship no longer serves me. But ultimately, they are him and they are me. So I have to hold on to that love in order to love my children wholeheartedly, because they are him. Some of them look like him and speak like him and still have like parts of him. So if I decide to like dislike someone that ultimately I love, just because I'm not in love with them, because I'm not in a relationship with them anymore, that is how I just hold on to that part. So every conversation that I then have with the children about, for example, it could be something as like, it is a shame that they're not around and it would be great if things were different, but they aren't. This is the current circumstance, and we just hope that one day that person can show up for you in a way that you deserve, they deserve, I deserve, and it looks different. However, all the while it's like this, we just lead with love, and it's that simple.
Yeah. Oh, I just think you're so strong and gracious and admirable. And I know there'll be so many people that listen to that and think, wow, what a way to view it, and arguably the only right way to view it. And I know on those days where you're extra tired or one of them's ill, it must feel incredibly difficult to stay in that frame of mind. But then again, that's when I guess you pull out your other support networks and the bits that you can, seek strength from. But you
Yeah,
must
and
have had
and
to
it's a
work really
journey.
hard at that.
Yeah, it's a journey. One thing I will never do is take away like what I feel like would be a choice for my children, like an objective one. You can love someone from afar, but you don't have to accept certain behaviours and things. So I want my children to have a really healthy experiences of love from everyone, even from me. There's times where I've been overwhelmed, frustrated, and probably not handled situations at home very well. I will check myself. I will apologise to my children and say,
Yeah.
oh gosh, I'm really sorry. Like, mummy was really shouty earlier, and I am really sorry.
Yeah.
I was really, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed. I've got things going on at work that's really stressful. So it wasn't fair because what you did maybe wasn't cool, but actually my response wasn't necessary.
Yeah, that's a whole other, like, it's so powerful to be able to apologise to your children. And we're not very good in the UK at doing that. We've got this weird generational perspective where we need to be the dominant one. I'm the mum, I'm the dad, but actually we're learning every day too. And actually like teaching our children to learn from mistakes and apologise and be reflective and developed then is such a key thing, I
What all
think.
you're teaching them now is accountability, and they're not going to get
Yeah.
it at this age. But if you continue to feed it and build into it with them, then you hope that one day they take it on. I think children copy. It's like if you want a behavior to change, you have to mirror it. If you want your kids to stop shouting at each other, you have to stop shouting at them. I'm working on it. I never used to be a shouty person, but the last year took something from me. So now
I
we're
know.
going to put it back.
Some days it's hard. Some days I do have to whip out I'm getting cross, and then if there's if there's danger involved or it's really really extreme, she'll get the look and the voice, and it has to come out. Sometimes it does.
Kindness and danger set me off. So like if someone's my 3-year-old boy is wild. But again, sometimes you're just already like a boiling kettle and it just takes one little thing and then the lid pops off and then you're like, oh God, let myself down. But
We
never mind.
we're the same as kids like that. Like their
Yeah.
resilience some days is higher. I always remember that, like, count to 8. It takes 8 seconds for a child to process what you've said to them. Like I definitely say Albert, Albert, Albert. Like if I've asked her to come brush her teeth, and I like sometimes I'm like 8 seconds. Wait. Like our expectations can be too high on our kids sometimes. 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And you've had
Yeah. I think maybe my parenting experience where like I've got, and it will change again when they go to secondary school, I'm sure, but it's
yeah
how much you lose your voice slightly when they're at school. So there's always a
yeah
child that's being parented very differently to how you're parenting. And there's always going to be someone who says something and undoes some of the work that you do. And again, it's just going to be their journey. And there's a really difficult parenting lesson that you have to go through where you have to just let them. And it's really hard. I've had children come over for play dates and it's really uncomfortable for the parents who are like, and you can tell that they're like, oh God, don't ask that question. They were like, what have you said? But in front of their own parents, turn around and said to me, like, how comes they haven't got a dad here then? Like, what's going on there then? And you have to, in the moment, respond to a question and be like, well, sometimes mummy and daddy decide that they no longer want to be in a relationship together and they're better off as friends and they live in different houses, or like really child friendly way of
be as
saying,
honest as you can, though.
as honest
Yeah.
as you can, but not just be like, oh, we talk about like blow over stuff. Like I
Yeah.
try and be as like, well, sometimes relationships between adults just don't work out, um and that's okay. Do you know what? Parenting is it's just like a minefield of constantly trying to like battle one thing after another and just like you said, do your best to try and get it right. And we're going to get it wrong. We're going to, or
Yeah.
not get it as right as maybe we could have, but we don't know until you do it. And then it's learning, constantly trying to feed yourself with information so you can move forward. Because one thing I did really want to talk about, just while we have the time, is like I really went through like a period where I was like, well, that's it for me. Like I've got 3 kids, I'm on my own. Like I'm just going to have to write off my life slightly because there's no
Yeah.
space for anything else. And
Yeah.
actually, that couldn't be more true. You do have to kind of grieve a certain amount of
Yeah.
independence that you had. You do have to grieve a life that you can no longer fulfill to a certain extent. And just like we were saying,
You do that when becoming a parent, you
Yeah.
do that anyway.
But just this concept and idea of this, like 2.4 children, this, white picket fence thing that we all wish we had, beautiful wedding and, blah, blah, blah. It's no longer my
It's not your
reality. And do you know what?
journey.
You have
Yeah.
to take it, park it, move on. But do you know what? Like, I am so passionate about giving women this real concept of like the whole like you can have it all thing. You can't, not all at once anyway. So like if you could bring down your expectations of how perfect you think your life must be all at once, like you're not going to have a tidy home with a full fridge and a thriving career and 3 children who are fully
And a
like
great
incumbent on
relationship,
them.
whether that's,
Yeah. And
yeah.
and a partner, and it's not going to happen all at once. But if you choose what is important to you and you make the changes or adjustments or choices for your life, you can still live an abundant, fulfilled life. Like it isn't a death sentence, like being a single parent. There is still a stigma, like being a single mum. Even some of the conversations I'll have at the school gate, like we coming up to Christmas or the Harvest Festival where they collect food and stuff. I had one of the teachers come up to me and be like, "Do you need a bag of food from our food bank?" Really sweet. Could have really used it, but there's still like it still feels really uncomfortable, or that you're like there's something wrong with you, or you're lazy, or you're less than, because you are sometimes treated like that. Do you know
Yeah.
you are? Like, oh, she's a single mum. Like, she's obviously. Oh, you work. Oh, good for you, babe. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't I work? Do you know? I appreciate not everyone has the luxury to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm so passionate about mums being able to work and it not, yes, sacrificing things, but also not viewing that as having to be a sacrifice. Like your house might be untidy, but you absolutely you can be a business owner. You can do things.
Yeah.
You can still have ambition and you can still conquer, like you're already conquering so much. And that is such
Or
a big
having
valid
the
piece of
luxury
advice.
to be a stay-at-home mum and do that job better than I can. Because if
Yeah.
I had a partner that went out and made money, I'd quite happily be a stay-at-home mum because it's hard. It's
I
really,
don't know if
really
you
hard.
would. I don't know if you
I
would.
think I
I
could.
think you'd enjoy. You'd enjoy it at first, but I know you, and you would miss getting a buzz out of something else. You would,
Yeah, you're
and
probably right. But
that's why you're doing it now. Like you could easily,
yeah,
Alice, you could easily sit into benefits, not work, not do. You're currently training for the marathon. You're getting out for runs. I've just saw you just got a running pram, so you can go and do that. Like with even when you got your children, you're doing your. We'll go on to this in a minute, but you're doing your wellness retreats. You're doing your social stuff. Like you are going way above and beyond, and you are already achieving. You're already doing all of what you just said before.
but that is because I want to. Like these are the
Yeah.
things that I have had to learn that like I could easily I've like feeding my kids is my favorite thing to do. And I will spend more money on food than I probably should, and I will spend a lot longer in the kitchen than I probably have time to do. But that is really important to me. So I will make my life harder because that to me is fulfilling for me, as well as I know it being great for my kids. I'll train
Yeah.
for the marathon because if I haven't got a physical act, because I used to professionally dance, that movement that I require for my body, if I don't move, I go insane. And even though I teach for a living now, it still like feels like a service, which I enjoy and it is work and I love doing it. But running and stuff is for me.
Yeah,
It's
that's your time.
for me. It's for me.
Yeah.
When I go to the gym, it's for me. So these are all things that I've had to allow myself to have because I'm a mum. I'm also a woman. But again, there is a sacrifice in there, and you have to choose. Haven't got time to date and stuff. I'm running miles these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
I'm doing
it's
me.
great. But if another woman was, more content with the other things and actually spending more time being intentional about like dating or whatever it is, that's also fine. I think for
Fine.
me,
Yeah.
it's just the messaging that if you're on your own with your children, you have a choice. You just have to decide what it is you want to be intentional about and do it, and then take the steps. Like,
Yeah.
I'm lucky I do have a really supportive family and I've got great friends, but also they're busy with their own lives as well. So I have to use
You can't lean
childcare.
on them all the time. Yeah.
No, and I don't want to. I don't want to be the only time I see people is when I'm like, can you have the kids? Because I've been
Yeah.
there as well, where haven't had a choice. I've had
Yeah.
to constantly ask. And now my life has progressed and it's become a little bit more easy where I can be like, let's get some childcare in, whether that's babysitters or whatever. So actually I can, when I do see, certain family members, it's for
That
different
family
reasons as
time.
well. Because then I
Yeah.
just, it's a minefield and we're all working through it, but that's just a message that I just really wanted to share, is that you can, however big it feels or however small it feels, them little things that you actually still can do as a parent that's on her own or on his own.
Absolutely. And you've done the advice piece. I always say at the end, what's your biggest piece of advice? You've done that. And then I always give you a chance to plug. So you've got a wellness event coming up in February,
March should be.
March. Okay, tell us about that.
So I started this a couple years ago now, but I did start it probably in the most challenging time of my life, probably because I needed it just as much as I felt like other people needed it. But ultimately, it's wellness through movement, because for me personally, I've always found my mental health and my physical health both can't strive without movement. And that doesn't mean you have to train for a marathon. That is just like oxygenating your body. That is just moving your joints, getting your lymphatic system drained. So it was an idea that I had for a while. And then I did 2 events, 45 minutes of movement, then a workshop, followed by another 45 minutes of yoga and a meditation at the end. And it's basically been designed for women only, to just have a safe space where you can come, you can meet other like-minded women, you can get that movement in your body, get that thing you've been missing, but also these little snippets of workshops that just kind of give you that little break to have some messaging like reinforced to empower and encourage and strip away all the things that we like to carry and create a little bit of space to then rebuild on. So then when we go through like the yoga and the meditation and stuff, you can just feel a bit lighter to absorb it all and actually take it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I work with a Rose who's just magic. Her yoga retreats are tenfold, and she so kindly still comes and is a part of like my little baby that I took a break from last year because I couldn't do it all in a way that I wanted it to be delivered, so I had to press pause. But they're back in
Yes.
March.
And I actually came along to one of
Yes.
them when Arlo was a baby, and we just reconnected, and so I can vouch for it, how amazing it was. And I actually wasn't able to do the relaxation at the end because Arlo decided to scream the hut down, but I could feel the power and the relaxation and the transformative feeling that was going on in that corner of the room.
Yeah.
Like she is a wizard.
When I tell you, like watching, like it sounds, again, might be a bit woo-woo for some people, but watching women who are, some of them in that room were like entrepreneurs, some were parents, some, are both, and watching them in a space and you can see things like you can
Yeah,
feel it, you can almost see it like coming off of them, and like the emotional release that everyone has of just the weight of the world as a woman is, to me, I'm like, I wish I could do it every day, like
yeah,
create them
I'm
environments.
I'm really looking forward to it. And where can people find the details for it when the tickets become available, Alice?
So my Instagram page for the retreats is currently called Classes and Culture, and the wellness retreats will be posted on there. There's a save the date, However, tickets aren't yet available because we're still just waiting for confirmation on the location. Once that's all done, it'll be, and it's reasonably priced. It's been created for everyone. Like, you don't have to be, as a single parent, you end up missing out on a lot because some of the things that you want to experience aren't accessible. So it's been created with that in mind. So it's not just for like an elite group of people. It is for everyone. So it's reasonably priced as well.
Yes. Well, everyone be sure to give it a follow and support the work that Alice does. She doesn't like me saying this, but I think you will all agree with me that she's incredible, and the strength and resilience and openness and dedication that you have and are as a woman and a mother and a leader, and well, I think you are entrepreneurial, you are. So thank you so much for sharing all your wise words and some of your experiences. And I know we could have talked for hours about some of what you've been through, and I think it's nice that we really homed in on that main advice and the way that we can be made to feel and feel sometimes. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me, and thank you for so many lovely words. It's sometimes hard to receive, but I appreciate it.
Take it. Thanks everyone for listening, and I will see you next time.